Why use hydroponics? What's the difference? Well, it comes down to the medium, I suppose. Soil is a mix of organic forest products and amendments for drainage and nutrition. So it's basically mulch and manure and perlite, maybe some sand, some earthworm castings, a mix of ground up tree bark and some peat moss or other types of moss. What I've got here, what I'm rinsing, is cocoa husk. So this is coconut coir and perlite, 20% perlite, 80% cocoa coir. And when you start using it, it's not really any different from soil, except it drains better. It's not all kind of muddy, right? There's no mud because there's no manure. The nutrients that I apply, I can apply a lot more specifically in the concentrations that I want. The hay's a lot like soil. Feeds your plants, keeps your plants in a nice, comfy environment. I'm just washing it out to wash out any excess salts and nutrients from the previous plant that was growing in this. And then I'm going to transplant a cucumber into this pot. On the tank plant. So this blue hose is what I use to fill up the reservoirs. These citrus plants are in soil. I have to look at it closely to see the difference, that there's the forest product rather than the cocoa coir. This grapefruit I started from seed. It's got cocoa chips in the top, and this is a mediumless hydroponic setup. So was an experiment to see if it would grow, and it's been growing for a year. It's not doing anything like putting out flowers, but perhaps it will. An NFT system also has a growing medium, which is that cube, and it gives the roots a place to grow through and hang on to, and allows the plant to stay moist and keep a moist environment around it. And to me, gardening is gardening. You know, the plants need a place to live. And as I've said in other videos on the channel, I choose to use a pot with cocoa when it's a plant that I want to live for a long time. A short-term plant like these lettuce plants growing in NFT, these only grow for a few weeks and then we harvest the whole plant. And so they don't need to be planted in soil. But a long-term plant like these peppers are going to be a year old next month. So actually probably the seedlings probably are already a year old. And because, you know, I had to start the seeds, grow the plant up a little bit before we put it in the system last July. So happy birthday, pepper plants. They're still producing lots of peppers. Waiting for these to start to turn red. And this plant's got a lot of nice size bell peppers on it. More hiding underneath. And, as I showed in my last video also, it just produced this new vine. And here's another new vine. So it's still growing. And I'm probably gonna, I mean, when they stop producing flowers, the old branches still keep producing peppers, so I haven't trimmed them back. Every time I get ready to trim that plant back, I see new peppers growing on the top of it, so I leave it alone. The cucumbers are younger plants. They've only been in here for a couple of months, but the way I've got it set up, these vines will just keep producing, and I'll keep letting out the strings so that the vines can grow longer and longer and longer and longer. And those can also live for a year. So after they start getting raggedy after, 6 or 8 months and start getting replaced, but they keep producing, for a whole year. Then these are really nice. These are the snacking cucumbers, which are really delicious, and so are these herbless. So it's another garden tour a little bit, but talking specifically about that subject of the growing medium, because there's all of this. So should I use Kratky? Should I use cocoa? Should I use straight perlite? And some of the commercial growers use a straight perlite when they're growing in those big floating systems, and that's an efficiency measure, and you need to have those really big tables to really make use of a system like that. So for a home gardener, what I do is I look at the systems that the professionals use, and I scale it or find the home garden version of it. And if you look at the way tomatoes are grown, for example, it's in a system like this. If you look at the way melons and cucumbers are grown commercially, it's a system like this. The only one that didn't work like that was when I tried to scale down strawberries. If you see my first strawberry video, I tried to scale down the commercial style strawberry growing, which they use channels, and I tried to replace the channels with window boxes, and found that the scaling it down too much started to cause health issues for the plants, that they weren't getting enough ventilation and drainage. So I'm doing something that's kind of my own design. I haven't seen anybody else grow strawberries like this, but it's working really well. I decide on the size of a pot or a system based on the growth of the plant. So I know the size of a strawberry root system, and so I decided I didn't need a big 2 or 3 gallon pot for that root system. They do fine in a 1 gallon pot. They do really well in a little bit of a tighter situation like that. Likewise with the radishes and the carrots. We're trying this experiment, and it works really well for radishes and carrots, even though it looks like we have a really poor germination rate on this particular tray. I don't know why that is. They may just be slow. Carrots can be slow, but those have been there for 2 weeks already, and half of them have not germinated. Or they may have germinated, but they haven't broken through the top anyway. Radishes, this is working really, really nicely. It's such a compact plant. They do great in this kind of system. Just a little bit of soil like that. So I do want to try growing the root vegetables without soil, and that'll be a future experiment. And I'll see how that goes. I have not really put the thought into it yet. So I love the cocoa, is I guess the bottom line. I use a pretty high-end stuff that's made here locally in Northern California. It's called tuber. I'd love to spell that for you. I think it's Toupor. Not sure about that. I usually have a bag of it sitting around, but I don't have it right now. I will, if you remind me in the comments, I will look it up for anybody who wants it and let you know the name. Any other questions are also welcome. And I hope your garden is doing as well as ours. I'm just gonna transplant this beautiful little cucumber plant that's been rooting now for a few weeks and finally ready to go into the pot. I give a lot of room on the bottom so that the roots don't get bent back on themselves too much. Let it go right in there, and then I kind of hold the plant in the air, elevated in that hole, and push the soil around it so that the roots are fully elongated and the soil just goes around the roots gently. Keep that plant nice and happy. And that's it. When the hydroponic system comes on, I'll start to get fed 4 times a day with the other plants. And looking forward to having another healthy cucumber plant. That's the same variety. It's actually a sucker that I took off of this plant right next to it. So mommy and baby together again.